Hi everyone, welcome to Fearless Backgammon, and we're match 6, game 3. Black is leading 2 games to 1 in a 7-point match. And as I promised, some of the games are going to become wild and woolly, and this is one of them. Quite some nice turnarounds and exciting match, but also some interesting learning points, especially in terms of burying checkers. And how that can affect your flexibility. Obviously, it's safer in the short run if you bury checkers safely, but in the long run, you could come up against some difficulties in terms of having to leave a shot, right? So let's look out for that as we go through this game, and we'll see. Unfortunately, for one of the players, we'll see the consequences of burying checkers and how it can lead to disastrous results, because of the um, sort of the short term versus long term kind of ideas behind it. Okay, so let's have a look at the game and yeah, hope you can learn something from it. Thanks. Okay, so we start with white rolling a 6-1 and making the bar point. And black correctly comes down and splits with the 5-4. But it is interesting to note that running is actually not far behind. Okay. Um, this is partly because black, um, you know, uh, gains a slight racing advantage, but also is in the lead, right, in the match. So racing keeps it simpler in general. Okay. But not really a big difference. And um, as you can see, just being prepared to make the 20 point, that anchor, the golden point, makes a lot of sense. Okay, so white rolls 5-4 himself, and in this case, running all the way is not the right idea, and white correctly kind of brings down and splits. Okay, as you can see, running is a mistake. Okay. Um, it's not really White's game plan here to run. He wants more of a complicated game as the trailer. Okay, so running kind of simplifies the game. And he doesn't have that big a racing lead. But unfortunately for White, Black is able to point on him with a 3-1. Nice roll. And he comes in with 3-6, and it's pretty natural here to jump out. If you stay where you are and then bring a 6 down, you're stripping the midpoint, and the checker on the 22 point is becomes a target as well. So the good thing with jumping out here is the idea that you're also kind of um, distracting black, right? So by jumping out, notice that fours hit, okay, but fours also make the 20 point. Okay, so that's a nice distraction. I kind of think of it as a distraction, right? To jump out and give black perhaps a difficult choice. Okay, so let's get rid of those lines. And so white correctly jumps out and black hits. But again, hitting with the second, moving down with the second checker to 13-11, it's okay. And it does give black more options for making the bar point afterwards, which is desirable. But it does strip the midpoint. And it's fairly early to be stripping the midpoint. It's not horrible though. XG kind of prefers just to bring the second checker up, yeah. So um, from 24 to 22 and hitting. Uh, in terms of hitting is mandatory, and you can see playing more passively. is not really the right idea here. Yeah. Okay. So hitting, but yeah, but sort of bringing the 24 to 22 to see daylight is perhaps better and not stripping the midpoint, but it's quite close. Okay, white enters with a 2-1, and he's got to try to fight for the advantage, so he hits loose. Okay, and tries to fight for the 5 point. No other move is really worth considering here. Okay, 6-4. And this is already an interesting moment. Okay, so black doesn't hit, is unable to hit on the 20 point. But instead he brings a checker in. And XG really doesn't like this, says it's a substantial error. Okay, and instead just recommends hitting um, loose from the 8 point. And the idea, of course, is that this is a tempo hit. Um, Black would like to prevent white from making that 5 point, right? And one of the best ways to prevent your opponent from making a point is to hit your opponent and put him or her on the bar. So that's the idea behind that. Um, Another alternative is basically, according to XG, just to jump out. Okay, but yeah, that's also quite a few shots. Yeah, but uh, again, maybe it sort of distracts because we have this idea, right, that threes hit, but threes also make the 5 point. But XG does prefer hitting loose in this case. So interesting moment, yeah. Okay, let's get rid of the lines. And yeah, so black instead makes kind of an error. And um, it doesn't seem bad, right? Black is kind of tidying up blots, but you notice black doesn't really have to be careful about blots in this particular role because white has a blot in his homeboard, right? And not a strong homeboard. So you don't really need to tidy up blots in this position. Now, there's not like an imperative, right, to do it. Um, so it's kind of strategically, it doesn't make as much sense. Or I'm not sure strategically is the right idea here. Almost like tactically, it doesn't make sense because white has the blot and the home board for now. Yeah. Okay, so again, pay attention to your opponent's home board, whether the opponent has blots or not. I've noticed in my own play and analysis that sometimes I play a little cautiously when there's a blot or blots in my opponent's home board, and actually says, "Yeah, just go for it. Don't worry, because of those blots." So paying attention to your opponent's home board and the blots therein is something to remember, right? It doesn't happen always, but if there are blots there, then you can play a little more aggressively than normal, generally speaking. Okay, so white rolls a 5-1 and is able to make the 5 point, obviously. Um, but XG prefers coming out. It's not by a lot, but it does look like a small error. Okay, and part of the idea again is white is stripping the midpoint. Okay, and the second thing is, yeah, these checkers need to get moving. Okay, and yeah, it's true that black has multiple shots, but with black strip point, a 6 hitting with a 6 is not so desirable, right? Black has to lose the midpoint. Um, which, with two checkers still back, it's a long way for them to get home without the midpoint as kind of a stepping stone. So that's kind of the idea behind it. Yeah. Those two factors, not stripping your own midpoint and also It's not as dangerous as it looks, right? It gets the white checkers moving, and there could be an exchange of hits. Now white has a decent prime, right? A 4 prime. So it's not as scary as it looks. Okay, let's get rid of these lines, these annotations. Okay. And so a slight error there. Yeah, should jump out. Okay, black rolls a 4-3, and this is quite it's a huge blunder. Okay, so what's going on here? It's very tempting, and it's very possible that black just played this move automatically, right? We're kind of trained to, oh, if we can point on somebody, if we can hit somebody and make a point, that must be like the best play automatically, right? And yeah, it can be, but there are a couple things here. First, black is hitting and pointing on the 2 point, which, is it's good to put a checker on the bar with a 3 point board, but this isn't really the point that black wants to make. The second issue, of course, is that black has these back checkers, and a 3 is very useful, right, for making the anchor. Black needs to get this checker out, especially or moving, and by establishing that anchor, right, it gives both long-term security for black and also possibilities for jumping out with a 6 or 5 for both checkers, right? So that's kind of the priority in this position instead of hitting. Um, a 3 point board isn't so threatening, and making the 2 point, we're going to see later, it's a bit of a liability. Okay. But I think part of the problem here is that more likely than not, black played the hit almost automatically. Okay, yes, I think we're good. Right, so instead, as you can see, XG recommends coming up with the 3 and just safetying the 9-point checker to the 5-point, okay, in this position. Okay, so after the hit, white comes in and hits loose. Okay, that's pretty automatic here, right? You got to fight for the initiative. And black rolls poorly with a 1-6. Okay, so this is a situation that shows you the problem with not making the anchor, right? Now black's in some trouble. Yeah. Now black compounds the trouble by playing the wrong 6, and black should basically just play to the 3, hope that he's missed. He has good chances of making that extra point in his home board if he's not hit. And the key thing, of course, is coming back to this idea that white has a blot in his home board, right? And so black can afford to play a little more riskily, even though it's not a huge risk. But now, if we look, black plays buries a checker, right? We talked about burying a checker, so that's one checker buried on the 2-point, which cuts down on black's future flexibility, okay, and takes away from his point making possibilities and his flexibility. So that's notice he made the 2-point, and now he can play safely to the 2-point, but that's not exactly desirable in this kind of position. Yeah. So black makes a fairly large mistake, and white doesn't quite realize that, especially because of that mistake, he has a double, quite a large double, in fact. Now, it's still a take, okay, as we can see here. Yeah, but it's close to a pass. Okay, it's very close. And the key thing, of course, is that if white is able to make the 4 point and establish that 5 prime, black is not in a great position to counter prime, especially with 3 checkers on his 2 point, right? And counter priming is kind of, it's not the only way that black can survive this or win, but it's generally the best way to sort of counter. And he's not in a good position to do that. It's possible that these checkers will just have to go in, and then white will control the outfield and have possibilities of building even a 6 prime or something like that, or catching a checker as it jumps out. Okay, so it's not a great position for black, and white should have realized this. It's true that white is behind in the race, yeah, by a number of pips, but black's position is not looking good. And especially if you know, it's almost like a market loser, right? If white makes the 4 point and then doubles, black is no doubt like in pass territory, and white is probably maybe even too good to double in that case. Yeah. So yeah, white missed quite a massive double, unfortunately, in this case. And remember, the other factor in sending the cube here is the score. Okay, white is behind in the score, so he has even more motivation to send a cube in this kind of position when he's got threats and a fairly strong advantage. Yeah. Okay. Notice the gammons are above 20%, and he's at 6 away, so that's a good score. If he were to win a doubled gammon, then that would put him at 2 away, right? Which is a very strong position indeed. Okay, so missing the double was unfortunate, but white still has the advantage. But another unfortunate thing is that white is unable to cover the 4 point. Okay, he rolls a 5-2 and misses the cover, and so he correctly just brings 2 checkers down. Okay, but his advantage is not so great now. And indeed, black hits with the 3, and in terms of the 1, it's interesting, right? So black plays with a lot of blots here, and XG is saying, just hit and let's tighten up the situation a little. No need to go crazy with so many blots. You know, a spare on the 8 point is useful. Yeah. It's kind of, I have to admit, it's a little surprising because it does look like after hitting a blot and sending a checker back, you want diversification in the outfield in order to, you know, make points and establish a prime. But again, it's not really a priming position thanks to these 3 checkers on the 2. Maybe that's kind of like strategically XG is saying, nah, this play is, you know, aiming at priming, but you know, priming is not really the best game plan here. Just running probably is. Yeah. Okay. So that's probably what's going on here. But it is interesting that this is considered such a large mistake. Okay, so now black has blots all over the place, but you know, white isn't in a particularly, you know, it's almost even in terms of the evaluation. White's turn to make a mistake, and I suppose, you know, like, of course it's natural, just you can't really stay with, right, with 3 points on the 24 point, right? That's the key thing, yeah. And so coming out is mandatory. Now, it seems daunting because black did diversify his checkers, so now he's got, you know, 6s and 5s and 2s and 1s all pile on this point. It's almost certain that black is going to hit and probably make this point. So it does seem kind of scary, but you know, just 3 checkers back here is also bad. And if black makes this point, makes the bar point with 3 checkers here, it's still bad, right? So you might as well try to get some action going. And if you're hit, you're hit. You still have possibilities of coming in on the 4 and 3, and even making an anchor possibly. It's hard to say, or hitting back. Okay, so that's the kind of action that you want. And I'm afraid it's a bit pusillanimous, right? Cowardly to just sit back there and safety this other checker. Yeah, so that's a blunder, unfortunately. Safetying that checker. You got to jump out. And yeah, it's a basic idea. I'm not sure why white didn't just jump out here. It's almost kind of automatic, to be honest with you. Leaving 3 checkers back there is not a good idea unless you're really going to get, you know, your opponent's home board is just a monster and you're going to get crushed, right? And gammoned, that kind of thing. But there's still a lot of play here. Okay. So black rolls a 6-1. And yeah, there's white, you know, jumping out with the back checker. That's natural. But again, it's interesting. This is a bit of a mistake here, it suggests. Okay. And again, it's kind of hard to say why. Black chooses to make the 12. And sorry, black chooses to just tidy up to the 8. And XG wants black to make the 12. I guess it's the idea, okay, let's leave some blots out here to catch one of these checkers, right? If they jump out. And, you know, tidying up this means perhaps there are fewer checkers. It's a bit hard to say here. Yeah, but it's not a huge mistake, but I'm not exactly sure about it. So if you have any ideas you want to put in the comments, it'd be appreciated. Okay. So white rolls a 4-1, which is kind of ideal, right? You still got 3 checkers back there, but you know, now you have the 5'. Okay. And black rolls a 3-3. And perhaps, you know, with doubles, it's sometimes difficult, right? But black just misses the natural, just making the 3-point. Okay, which kind of shuts in white's back checkers a little more, and you know, making a point is worthwhile here, trying to cut down on white's mobility. And instead, black, you know, plays kind of solidly, makes the 9, puts a spare checker on the 5. But the home board still has these holes, right? And XG really wanted to fill one of the holes efficiently with the double 3s. So be careful with doubles. You know, if you have time, then, you know, there are often so many possibilities in terms of how to play doubles. And so just make sure that you consider as many possibilities as you can, okay, before making your move, because it's easy to miss good plays with doubles. Okey-doke. So white rolls another 4-1, not very useful. Can't do anything with the back checkers, so just diversifies the checkers, the front checkers a little. And black rolls a 5-2. So black is not doing very well here in the PR. Lots of mistakes, right? And this was black's opportunity again to make a home board point. Now that there are 3 checkers, you do have some interest in kind of semi-priming these checkers and blocking them from moving, and strengthening your home board in case one of them jumps out. Okay. Whereas this play seems safer, right? There's only 1 blot, but it does open up the checker to attack. And it does kind of give up the outfield, right? So that if white is able to run with a 6 and out, then, they've got an eye on the outfield. So even if black is not attacked here and is able to jump out, then there's a possibility white will have the chance to hit. But of course, it's speculative at this stage. But making the 4 point was the right play here. Okay, let's clean this up. Right, and white rolls 6-1 and is able to do two good things: jump out and hit. Okay, and we're at a crucial point in the match here, right? Because if black doesn't hit back, white could make a 6 prime, and then definitely black's in huge trouble. But black is able to hit. Unfortunately, he hits with a 3 and a 5, so the 5 doesn't play well. And black correctly sees that he has to play loose, right? He's got to play to the 3 point. There's no other possibility, really. Okay. And but black misses. At least he misses the blot in black's home board, but he is able to hit with the 4. Okay, so there's still play, and it's still very much up in the air. And black needs to perform from the bar again. And perform he does with a 2-1 and hits again. But notice it's still really close, okay? Black still has a blot in his home board, and black's still behind a 5 prime. So if you look at the evaluation, it's basically 50-50, right? So even though it looks bad for white, there's still lots of possibilities. White misses the blot, unfortunately, but he is able to bring one of the back checkers out and to make the bar point here, the opponent's bar point. So that's some progress. And again, the evaluation says, yeah, it's very close game now. It's partly because of this structure for black. Even if black is able to make this point, it's not a great structure. But yeah, white has a blot now, so black does have some attacking chances. He's still got to get this checker out, of course. So yeah, there's still lots of play. Okay. Let's clean that up. There we go. Okay. So black rolls a 6-4. He's able to jump over the 5 prime. And then with the 4, again, black is tempted just to play safely and bury a checker. But it's a big mistake, almost a blunder, basically. And XG says you got to bite the bullet, just go all the way. Don't bury any more checkers. Don't waste any more checkers. There's still lots of play. White still has lots to do, even if white is able to hit. So just bite the bullet and go for it. Instead, black buries a second checker on the 2 point. Okay, so this considerably cuts down on his flexibility, as we said at the beginning of the video. Burying a checker like that, So let's see what happens as a result. Okay, white misses again, but he's able to bring out one of the checkers at least and maintain his anchors and maintain his 5 prime, so that's not so bad. Okay, though he would have liked to have hit something. And black rolls a 6-6. Okay, so gives him the advantage, but does leave a blot. Okay, as we can see, right? So again, white still has some play, and white misses yet again with 4s. Okay, and so now it's getting down to crunch time, right? It's true that white now has a 4-point board. Okay, it's been improved, but if black can get in and cover the blot, things could get dicey, and there could be some gammons, right? And in fact, at this moment, black doubles, and XG says this is quite a good double, very strong double. Okay. There are almost 30% gammons. Yeah. And yeah, white does have decent winning chances, but those gammons are really expensive, right? If black wins a doubled gammon, he's getting to Crawford. Okay. Which is going to be very strong. So now what's interesting is it is a take. Okay. And it's basically based on this weakness, but also on the fact that all these checkers are buried. So black's flexibility here is kind of weak, right? Of course, there are good rolls that allow him to cover and safety a checker, but there are some rolls where he can't do both or can't do either. And so this does give white a take. And as you can see, the winning chances are over 30%, right? Almost basically 33%, 1/3. One game in 3, you win this. So yes, the gammons are expensive, but it's worth it. And you know, it's interesting. Black is 5 away, right? So if it was 4 away, right, and black could win this game with win this match with a doubled gammon, then it's quite possible it would be a pass. But yeah, I guess generally the worst thing that could happen would be black would get Crawford, and so there would still be some hope, right? So that could be a factor as well. So white correctly takes, and again, as you know, because white is behind in the score, you tend to take a little more aggressively. But of course, you have to be careful. But it is basically because of the weakness of black's position and those buried checkers that makes white think, okay, I can take this. And he's correct in taking it, though it's, you know, close. It's close. Right. Okay. Black rolls a 3-1 and is able to safety his checkers. Okay, but still has a hole on his 4-point. And he has even more checkers buried. Okay. White rolls a 3-3 and makes basically the perfect 5-point board in his home board and waits for a shot, right? So not a bad roll. And there we are. There's the 6-1. There's another shot. And again, this is basically kind of related to the fact that black has so many buried checkers. And so his flexibility, you know, is dead, right? Very poor flexibility, and it leads to a shot at the worst possible time when white is, you know, got such a strong home board with no gaps like black does. So this is basically a situation, right, where yes, in the short term, black played safely and didn't leave any blots, but in the long term, his flexibility decreases until it doesn't always happen, of course. Black could roll a double and safety everything and win a doubled gammon, but you know the odds are not in black's favor, and the possibility of leaving a shot once your flexibility is gone is much greater. Okay, so do keep that in mind. Before you bury checkers, really consider whether it's absolutely necessary, whether, you know, maybe you should risk a shot now to preserve your flexibility, you know, if that's possible. Okay, and in this game it was possible because white had so many checkers back and his home board wasn't that strong at the time, but instead he chose to bury checkers, right?
Okay, so let's see what happens. Bingo. Finally, white hits a shot. And it's interesting that, hitting the shot is right, but then white maybe should be a little more careful, and simply move both checkers out. Okay. The idea, I guess, it's not a big mistake to split from the back, but I guess the idea is that the game isn't necessarily over at this point. And so, what if black enters with like a 1-2 or double one or something and is able to attack and let's say make a 5-point board or something, and then just roll 6 and win, right? And pick up these blots and maybe even get a gammon, right? So at this point, before white has redoubled, it's better to play a little more conservatively. It's true that you don't want these back checkers stuck, so generally you want to split. That's why it's not a big mistake. But XG says, you haven't redoubled yet, so better to be safer than sorry, and just diversify these checkers out here in case, black could still roll 1-6, and then you do want your checkers spread out more to be able to hit it. Or black could roll a double one, or a 1-2 might work, okay? And then be able to turn the game around, before you can redouble him out, So that's also an interesting thing to consider, right? Because you don't necessarily want to play a riskier move when you know that you have a very strong double next turn, generally speaking. Yeah. So keep that in mind. Not a big mistake. Okay, so black dances and white redoubles. But interestingly, it's actually too good. And here we have to be careful, right? Like white has been fighting for his life here and missing so many shots. And it's happened a lot to me, and I'm sure, many of you have encountered this as well, right? As soon as the game turns around in your favor, you redouble without actually thinking, maybe I'm too good. It's, whip that cube over. Ha, great. I win 2 points. But, there's still, remember, black hasn't taken any checkers off, so there's still gammon possibilities here. And according to XG, it's almost 20%. Yeah. And it's basically based on the idea that even if black enters with a 1, there are a lot of bad numbers, right? 1-5, 1-4, 1-3, 1-2, risks as well, getting hit and gammoned. Okay. 1-6 and 1-1 are pretty good, right? But there's good number of numbers like where black was kind of like, I hope I don't enter. Okay, and so white might as well just wait and see what happens. And you could always, there aren't a lot of rolls other than perhaps double ones where things could turn around. Maybe 1-6 and not getting hit, but there aren't that many numbers, right? So it's worth white playing on and potentially picking up 1 or even 2 more checkers by just playing on. And yeah, obviously 4 points would be quite valuable, right? If you get a doubled gammon from this position. So yeah, it's basically almost a blunder to redouble this and cash, as we say, cash the game. So lesson, this is something that I have to remember, and hopefully you keep in mind as well, right? Once you turn the game around, you've hit someone, things are looking great. Don't automatically send the cube back in a redoubling situation. Just pause and think, am I too good? Obviously there's a bit of risk involved. Black can still win 15% of the games, but that's not a very high percentage. Okay, and the gammons, as you can see, are higher than black's winning chances by a number of percentage points. Anyways, lesson learned. Okay, so I hope you found that interesting, and I think the consequences of bearing checkers, is pretty instructive here. Sort of a case study of why it can be bad, short-term security versus long-term flexibility. Yeah, and quite an exciting game, back and forth. White looked like he was on the ropes there for a little while, but because of Black's homeboard position and the gaps, possibilities opened up, and White was finally able to hit a shot and turn the game around. But White could have played on. Yeah, so some lessons to take from this game that are useful. Okay, so hope that was useful. Hope that was helpful, instructive. And let's see how this match develops. White is now ahead, 3 to 2. Okay, so White's in the lead, but there's still lots of play, and some of the games coming up are just going to get your eyes rolling. That's backgammon, right, with all the jokers and things like that. So quite exciting. So look out for game 4. Okay, thanks very much.